Good evening, good morning, YouTube. Salutations, wherever you're at. So recently, I had a couple little things on my mind. I thought I'd just kind of see what other people thought. So this kind of started because I've recently been really interested in wildlife and natural history, and that's a little bit newer to me. I mean, I've read wildlife stuff before, but not a ton. I don't think I got the book out here, but I had picked up Snow Leopard by Peter Mathiasen, which I've read before, but I was thinking about rereading it due to my recent interest in wildlife. So I've been reading with my son recently, who's still rather young. I got him this really great shark book, actually two of them. I got him that and another one about prehistoric mammals. So I've been reading it with him. I made a deal with him about some rewards, but I also told him I would read whatever he reads, or I'd read something very similar. So, and then I picked up a couple issues of BBC Wildlife. I'll put that up here. So I've been reading these shark books with him, and I think I'm just as interested in it or more than he is. But and they're pretty good considering, they're kind of designed for a younger age, but they're probably a little more advanced than his age, but not by much. Anyway, but I've been finding them really enjoyable, and it's really piqued my interest recently in wildlife. It kind of started a little bit before that. Like, I read this really great article from National Geographic about hippopotamus and hippos. Like, and I just was so fascinated by the whole thing, man. Like, did you know so I'll tell this story real quick. So, most people will know who Pablo Escobar is, right? So Pablo Escobar imported some hippos from Africa to Colombia, just 4 of them. And then once Pablo Escobar was arrested, the authorities didn't really know what to do with the hippos. So they just left them. They're like, whatever, we'll just leave them there. They'll be fine. But of course, in the environment that the hippos were in was like really conducive to them and was really beneficial to them. So the hippos, of course, just started breeding. So now, in the modern day, there's like hundreds, there's like 300 of these hippos, and they've become a bit of an ecological problem in the area with like stuff to do with the water and the environment, and for several reasons. And they are just thriving. And of course, hippos are very dangerous to humans. There's actually more deaths to humans by hippos, I think it is, than sharks per year. So, and hippos have like the strongest overall bite force recorded amongst living animals. Not pound for pound. There's some other metrics there, but just overall bite force, it is the strongest recorded. That being said, there's no actual recordings of shark bite, or at least there's issues with recording shark bite force. So there are some caveats to that. But anyway, and I just think it's great, But the Colombia, the hippos are a bit struggling in certain parts of Africa and becoming, not endangered, but put on some watch lists. But then they're thriving in Colombia. And I was just so fascinated by this story. And now the Colombian government is trying to castrate and, these hippos, and it's trying to and it's like, well, they were killing them for a while, but people, obviously, stood up for this and said we shouldn't be doing that, and I agree with that. I don't think they should be doing that to these hippos. Humans brought this, created this problem, and we should deal with the consequences of it. So I get it. You don't want to let it cause, ecological disaster, but at the same time, we shouldn't be harming these hippos because humans made mistakes. But anyway, and I just think that's fantastic. I think it's great. And I went and I signed the petition to help the hippos. So anyway, I just went on this tangent about these hippos. And the point is that I've just been really enjoying this recently. And I've been thinking about, this has caused a couple issues for me. And this is not something I've thought about this before, but so I like history. And that's another issue I kind of have sometimes is I have a very broad interest when it comes to history. Like, I really like Asian history. I've recently been getting and that's mostly been Russia, Middle Eastern history. I've always been really interested in. And I've been recently just kind of, dabbling in Far East history. So like China and Japan, Korea. But besides just that, I really like European history. I like American history. I like South American history, I like all history, and I struggle with it sometimes because it can make it difficult to make choices sometimes. But not just that. It's kind of like because my interests are so broad when it comes to history, it's like, do I, focus on, the 100 Years' War and Western European history? Do I want to learn more about Central European history? Do I want to spend more time on Russian and Far East history? Like, and then I don't specialize in anything, and then I don't really become like that high of a level in it because I'm always kind of bouncing around. I think some of that comes from, my grandma was a teacher, and is just overall an incredibly smart lady. One of the smartest people I've ever known my whole life. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm on top of just being excellent at spelling. She speaks German. Not does she just speak German? She speaks dialects of German, like Bavarian. So if you don't know anything about German, there's like High German, which is like Standard German. And High German has nothing to do with class or anything like that. That's actually literally due to elevation and where it comes from in that country. Their geographics. But so she speaks dialects of German on top of knowing Spanish. So just an incredibly intelligent woman. So, and she raised me. So maybe I'm biased, but I remember watching her. She would watch Wheel of Fortune sometimes. There would be like, I'm not kidding, like an 8-word sentence up there with 3 letters, and she would get it right then. Like it used to blow my mind. Yes. Oh, anyway, but it's just, she's just, like I said, she's just an incredible person. So I could go on. I got tons of stories about her, but anyway, I didn't mean to go on that tangent about my grandma, but she was a very big proponent of exploratory reading. So she allowed me to read things, which, started with comic books, but then I moved on to, what you might call more traditional reading, I guess, where I read stuff like Lord of the Rings and Tarzan, and then, eventually I'd get really into Westerns. But anyway, the point is that she just always, like again, promoted that, allowed me to do it, allowed me to explore and to learn. And she never put like any, caveats on it or any restraints. Well, some, but like not a lot, like just more financial than anything else. Like she wasn't going to buy me a ridiculous amount of books. But anyway, the point is that, so I've always just kind of been like that when it comes to learning, and maybe it's just something naturally in me. I don't know, but I just sometimes struggle with that because it's like, well, I ought to really try to be, an expert at one of these things instead of just knowing a little bit about a lot. But, at the same time, it's like, then I get a broader range of stuff. So, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced this, but again, I sometimes struggle with it. And now recently I've been getting into the wildlife, and I'm trying to think of like, and I still kind of am like, what is my channel going to be? Do I want it to be a lot about history, but like, could I talk about wildlife books and stuff too, and people still watch? I don't know. I don't know if people would be interested in that. Like, I just read the Rise and the Fall of the Dinosaurs, and I really enjoyed that book a lot. And Steve Bissett has another book called The Rise and Reign of the Mammals I'm interested in. I might read that. I just picked up King Tyrant. I'll put the title up there, which is about the T-Rex. So I've been like into prehistoric life too, because I've been reading that with my son. There was another one I got on my TBR, which is like or maybe it's sea life at the time of the dinosaurs, or prehistoric sea life. And then I got just another wildlife book. I got of Orcas and Men on my reading list, which is, like I said, that's more general wildlife. And my experience has been, when I get an interest like this, then I just follow through with it. I just go down the rabbit hole until I'm no longer, until I can't do it anymore. So, and then, I'll be, cured of it, so to speak. I'll satisfy my, my thirst for that knowledge a little bit. But again, like I said, it's sometimes a struggle. It's like, well, there's more history. There's still more history stuff I want to learn. Like, how much time am I going to spend on this wildlife? Like I said, I picked up BBC Wildlife. I've always liked National Geographic. So I don't know, man. I just was wondering what you guys might think of that, and if anyone else ever struggles with this. I like reading fiction too, but I'm so engaged right now with the history and the wildlife stuff that it's like I feel like it's like, no, I can't take time to do that because I got to do these things. So, and it's funny because I've been like all against the whole like, oh, you always have to be productive thing, but then I guilt myself into thinking I always have to be reading educational stuff. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe nobody else thinks like this, but I don't know. So let me know what you guys think. Good night or good day, wherever you're at.